All right, let's plunge headfirst into the world of filmmaker Brad A. Spinka. This deep dive was actually a listener request, and you know what? I can totally see why. Going through these film concepts is like, it's like spelunking into a cave filled with these dark and twisted, almost crystalline
That's like
formations.
blueprints for nightmares, wouldn't you say?
Blueprints, yeah, that's a really good way to put it. You know, what really strikes me is how these concepts, even across different genres, they're like shattered pieces of a mirror, right? And each piece, each one of them, is reflecting Benke's fascination with the human psyche, the fragility of reality, and this underlying current of darkness, even in like ordinary settings.
You've hit on something really crucial there. It's not just about the horror elements, right? It's about the psychological exploration. It's about the way Benker uses extreme scenarios to really kind of dissect our anxieties, our fears, the things we try to keep hidden.
So let's jump into one of these unsettling worlds. The Asylum of Twisted Mirrors. The title alone is kind of creepy, right? I mean, we've got this crumbling asylum, a doctor who's obsessed with understanding madness, and this recurring motif of mirrors. But they're not just mirrors, they're warping and reflecting something really sinister.
The asylum itself, it's like this really powerful symbol
Yeah.
of confinement, both physical and mental. But what's really interesting is how Benke uses the mirror. It's not just a reflection of the character's psyches, which are, fractured, but it's also like a window into his own, well, artistic obsessions. The way he describes the mirror's warping, becoming almost monstrous. It's almost as if he's suggesting that, like, the act of creation itself can be a descent into darkness.
There are these like incredibly vivid descriptions of patients writing on the walls with blood and creatures lurking in the shadows. And then there's the doctor, Dr. Hansen. He starts out wanting to help, but he ends up becoming a puppet of the very forces he's trying to control.
It's that classic exploration of hubris, right? The danger of trying to control something as powerful and unpredictable as the human mind. And what sets Benke apart is the way he uses these really visceral images to convey the doctor's dissent. It's not just that he's losing his grip on reality, we're shown it through these grotesque, almost hallucinatory descriptions.
It makes you wonder, is there a point where trying to understand evil takes you too close to the edge?
It's a question that really kind of haunts a lot of Benke's work. That line between observer and participant, sanity and madness, it's often, blurry. And he kind of forces us to confront that ambiguity. He doesn't offer easy answers, which is, that's part of what makes his work so unsettling and thought-provoking.
Okay, so let's go from the supernatural horror of the asylum to something that feels a little more grounded but no less intense emotionally. Deluge of Despair. It starts with a devastating mudslide that wipes out a town, and our protagonist, Jackson, is desperately searching for his stepson amidst the wreckage.
This concept really highlights Benke's ability to use natural disasters as metaphors for human grief and loss. The mudslide, in this case, becomes this physical manifestation of this overwhelming force of grief, the way it can just bury you alive. And Benke's descriptions are incredibly powerful, almost poetic in their rawness.
There's this one line that really stuck with me. He writes, "This was Brady Street, his home. Now it's just a scar on the earth where memories used to live." I mean, it's heartbreaking.
Oh, but it also speaks to the resilience of the human spirit, the way we try to hold on to those memories even when everything else is, washed away.
And visually, you can just imagine how impactful this story could be on screen. The sweeping shots of devastation, the close-ups on Jackson's face as he's, frantically searching, clinging to hope. It's a story that would stay with you long after the credits rolled.
All right, brace yourself, because this next one, it's a little intense. It's called INT, Kitchen Nighttime, and the title is as stark as the story itself. We're in a kitchen, a seemingly mundane setting, but the situation is anything but ordinary. This is where Benke really taps into our primal fears. Betrayal, the unknown. We have Trent, the protagonist. He's held captive by someone he thought he knew, someone he trusted. And then comes the horrifying realization that he's about to become, well, dinner.
Yeah, the cannibalism is obviously disturbing, but what really gets under your skin is the psychological manipulation, right? The way the captor justifies his actions. It's chillingly casual, matter of fact, which somehow makes it even more horrific.
Benke is suggesting here that true horror, it isn't always found in the supernatural or the grotesque, but in the darkness that can reside within seemingly ordinary people, the things that they're capable of when, societal norms break down.
And that ending, with the captor calling his wife, all happy, talking about how their son's old enough to eat like a man. It's like Benk is throwing this grenade of a thought into your mind. This idea that this kind of darkness can exist within a family, seemingly normal, unit, is a truly unsettling concept.
Yeah. Yeah, he forces you to confront that idea that evil can be found anywhere in the most unexpected places. It disrupts our sense of normalcy, which is, I think, a hallmark of Benke's work.
Let's shift gears now and enter the digital world with INT Living Room Night. This concept explores that intersection of technology and horror, tapping into our anxieties about the internet, the dark web, that feeling of being watched, manipulated by unseen forces.
I think what's really interesting here is that Benkei doesn't just use technology as a backdrop for the horror. He makes it an integral part of the narrative, an extension of the protagonist's psychological torment.
Right, we have Ethan, he's trapped in this deadly online game, and his every move is being watched. Plus his loved ones are in danger, and the stakes, they just keep getting raised with each level, each room, a new psychological torture chamber.
It's so effective how he blurs those boundaries between, the virtual and the real. The game is literally bleeding into Ethan's life, and the sense of paranoia, it's palpable. It's this nightmare scenario that speaks to our anxieties about the loss of control in this hyper-connected world that we live in.
And it's not just about the digital world, right? There's this parallel threat in the real world, too.
Yeah.
Ethan's being hunted, and we're left wondering if he's going to escape this game before it consumes him entirely.
It raises an interesting question. What happens when our online lives become so entangled with our real lives that the lines, they blur beyond recognition? And it's a theme that feels really especially relevant today as, technology is just becoming more and more integrated into everything we do.
Now, let's step into the dark and kind of glamorous world of Marilyn Manson, or I guess I should say Brian Warner, before the makeup and persona. This is The Corrupted, a psychological horror musical.
What Benka does here is fascinating. He takes the public persona of Marilyn Manson, a figure who's already shrouded in darkness and controversy, and he kind of dissects it, exposing the psychological turmoil beneath the surface.
So we're taken on this journey through Brian's transformation into Marilyn Manson. And let me tell you, it's not a pretty picture. It's like this descent into darkness, and it's fueled by childhood trauma, struggles with identity, and that seductive allure of fame.
And the use of music as a narrative device is brilliant. Banka takes Manson's own songs, right? And he twists them, distorts them, reflecting Brian's inner turmoil. It's almost like the music itself is being corrupted by these demons.
And there's this constant back and forth between Brian and Manson, the vulnerable artist, and this monstrous persona. And it's never really clear which one is truly in control.
Like this psychological tug of war, and the stakes are Brian's soul. And visually, you can just imagine the impact, right? The gothic imagery, the grotesque makeup, the haunting music. It would be a feast for the senses, but also, a deeply disturbing exploration of the price of fame.
And then at the end, we're back at the abandoned church from the beginning, but now there's a grave. It reads, Brian Warner, a nobody, which is just this chilling image that suggests that Brian, the real person, has been consumed by the monster he created.
It's like a powerful statement about the dangers of losing yourself in the pursuit of art, of fame, of any kind of external validation, really. It's that reminder that true identity, it comes from within, not from the masks we wear or the personas we create for the world.
Okay, from the psyche of a rock star to the dark heart of New Orleans. INT Abandoned Float Warehouse Night. This concept takes us into a world where the vibrancy of Mardi Gras collides with this, creeping sense of dread.
It's a brilliant choice of setting, the abandoned float warehouse. It's filled with these remnants of past celebrations, so it becomes this symbol of decay, of something beautiful and joyful, now tainted by this darkness.
We're introduced to three characters, Ethan, Lena, and Jackson, and they're haunted by something they unleashed in the past. And through these flashbacks, we see the ritual they performed, the moment they opened a door to something, sinister.
And Benka doesn't describe the entity in detail, which, makes it even more terrifying. It's this shadowy, inhuman presence filling the warehouse, preying on their guilt and fear.
Lena, she carries a crucifix. She's clinging to faith as a shield, but you get this sense that it's not enough. They try to banish the entity, but it feels like they've only pushed it back, not really defeated it.
Yeah, it leaves you with this lingering sense of dread, this feeling that the darkness they unleashed is still out there waiting to claim them. And Benka reinforces that with the final warning. It's not over. It's just beginning.
All right, let's switch gears again. Step into the world of stage magic and illusions. This is The Dark Enchanter. We meet Alexander Dracos, a magician haunted by a dark past, and he's planning his grand finale, an escape act that may be his last.
He cleverly plays with this idea of the magician as a master manipulator, right? Someone who can make us see what he wants us to see. But in this case, the greatest illusion Alexander has to confront is his own guilt.
We get these glimpses of his past through these, really quick flashbacks, card tricks, coin vanishes, all with dark, deadly twists. It's like each illusion, it hides a terrible secret, a life taken, a trust betrayed.
The imagery is very cinematic, using light and shadow to create this sense of mystery and suspense. And the mirror motif, it returns, but this time it reflects Alexander's fractured psyche, this inability to escape the consequences of his actions.
There's this one scene where Alexander's practicing his escape act, and he keeps seeing the faces of his victims in the mirror. And then the mirror shatters, and his reflection is laughing at him. It's like his guilt is literally breaking through the illusion.
It's such a powerful visual representation of his psychological torment. It speaks to Benka's skill in using imagery to convey really complex emotions. He doesn't just tell us that Alexander's haunted by his past, he shows us in this really disturbing, unforgettable way.
And the ending is left ambiguous. Alexander's performing his escape act, suspended high above the crowd. But he sees his victims again, their faces in the audience. And then he lets go.
Did he fall to his death, or did he use his magic to escape one last time? Benka leaves that question unanswered, forcing us to kind of confront the ambiguity, the uncertainty that lingers long after the curtain falls. And it speaks to those larger themes of guilt, redemption, the consequences of our actions, that run throughout Benka's work.
Okay, let's tune into something a bit different now. This is INT Sarah's Apartment Day. Story that blends true crime with the haunting allure of old-time radio. We meet Sarah, a podcast host who's obsessed with uncovering the truth behind a radio station that went silent decades ago, and its staff vanished mid-broadcast.
It's that classic ghost story setup, right? But Benka adds these layers of complexity by using the radio as this medium for communication with the beyond. It taps into our fascination with unsolved mysteries and the power of sound to evoke, fear, suspense.
And Sarah, she decides to investigate the abandoned radio station, which, of course, is never a good idea in a horror story, but it's her determination to uncover the truth that drives the narrative forward.
And the fact that she's a podcast host herself, it adds this interesting layer of metafiction, right? She's a storyteller who becomes part of the story she's trying to tell, blurring the lines between reality and fiction, observer and participant.
She gets to the station, and it's like stepping back in time. Dusty equipment, old posters, this palpable silence that feels heavy with secrets.
The setting itself becomes a character, this place where the past kind of lingers, refuses to be forgotten. It's a reminder that history is never truly buried. It can resurface in the most unexpected ways.
And then in the radio booth, things get really strange. The control panel, it lights up, and she hears voices through the speakers, these voices begging for help, warning her about the signal. It's as if they're reaching out from beyond the grave, their desperation just echoing through the static.
The way Benka uses those distorted voices and that eerie atmosphere of the abandoned station to create this sense of unease, it just crawls under your skin.
And the voices, they start following her even after she leaves the booth. They're not just on the radio anymore. They're in her head, in the very walls of the station. She's trapped, and the mystery is closing in on her, threatening to consume her entirely.
It's this brilliant use of psychological horror, that feeling of being hunted, of losing control of your own senses. And the way Benka uses the tape reels, wrapping around Sarah, pulling her into the mystery. It's chilling. It really speaks to that idea of being consumed by the very story you're trying to uncover.
And that's where Benki leaves us in the first ending, with Sarah's muffled screams as the tape covers her mouth and the room goes dark. But there's an alternate ending, too, which just adds another layer of tragedy to the story.
Yeah, in this version, Sarah's friend, Mike, comes looking for her after she disappears. He finds her recorder, hears her account of the events, and then the same thing happens to him. It's like the radio station itself is hungry for victims, drawing people in and then trapping them forever in its haunted history.
It's this chilling reminder that some mysteries are better left undisturbed, that the pursuit of truth can come at a terrible price.
And it speaks to Benki's fascination with the cyclical nature of horror, the way history can repeat itself, dragging these unsuspecting victims into its web.
Okay, hold on to your sanity, because we're about to enter this realm where reality gets really, really blurry, the Twisted Trilogy. This concept is a mind-bending exploration of multiple perspectives, unreliable narrators.
Think he's playing with our perception here. He forces us to question everything we see and hear. We have three interconnected stories, each with a protagonist trapped in their own psychological nightmare. There's Emma, who's receiving these creepy texts from an unknown number, Charlie, a comedian losing his grip on reality, and Jack, the seemingly charming guy who might be more sinister than he appears.
And that title, The Twisted Trilogy, it's very fitting. It suggests that these characters' lives, they're entangled in this way that's both disturbing and inescapable. It's like they're all pieces of a broken mirror, reflecting these distorted versions of themselves and each other.
Exactly. And the setting keeps shifting between reality, dreams, and hallucinations, making it impossible to tell what's real and what's a product of their fractured psyches.
So, like, in one scene, we're in Emma's apartment, and she's terrified because she's getting these texts saying, "I'm inside." And then cut to a comedy club where Charlie's on stage feeling like the laughter is turning against him. And then, bam, we're in an asylum, and Charlie's talking to a doctor about feeling trapped in a twisted mirror.
It's those quick cuts, those jarring transitions that create this sense of disorientation, this feeling that the boundaries between these characters' realities are breaking down.
And then you have Jack, who seems connected to both Emma and Charlie in some way, but his motives are never clear. Is he manipulating them, playing some kind of twisted game?
He's the wild card, the embodiment of the unpredictable nature of the human psyche, and Benke uses him to explore those themes of control and manipulation, the ways in which we can be both victims and perpetrators in our own psychological prisons.
And the ending, rather, endings. Well, there are two versions, which just adds to the mind-bending nature of the story. It's like Benke is challenging us to question the very nature of narrative, to acknowledge that there might be multiple truths, multiple realities coexisting.
It's a bold and unsettling approach. He forces us to confront this idea that reality is not always fixed or objective, that it can be fluid, subjective, and ultimately terrifyingly unpredictable.
Let's take a step back from those psychological mind games of the Twisted Trilogy and dive into Twisted Love. It's a more grounded thriller, one that plays with our expectations of romance, showing how easily charm can mask, well, manipulation.
We have Emma, our protagonist, meeting Jack, who seems like a charming guy. They start dating, and things seem to be going well, but there are these subtle red flags, little hints that something's not quite right with Jack.
He's overly attentive, remembers every little detail about her, but then he sends her a text saying, "Hope you're safe at home," and it's just a bit too possessive, you know? That kind of behavior can be either romantic or creepy, depending on the context.
And Mencken masterfully creates this ambiguity, making us question Jack's intentions. Is he genuinely concerned for her safety, or is he trying to control her? And as the story unfolds, those subtle red flags, they become more and more prominent.
And then, to make things worse, Emma starts getting texts from an unknown number warning her about Jack. They tell her he's not who she thinks he is.
The story becomes a puzzle. Emma's trying to piece together the truth about Jack while simultaneously questioning her own sanity. And Jack is gaslighting her, acting like she's imagining things, making her doubt her own perceptions.
It's classic manipulative behavior, the kind that erodes a person's sense of self-worth, makes them question their own reality. And it's a theme that Benke revisits in several of his concepts, this idea of the unreliable narrator, the manipulation of truth, and the insidious nature of psychological abuse.
And then, just when you think you figured it out, Benke throws in a twist. In the alternate ending, we discover that Emma has been sending those threatening texts to herself.
Yeah, it's a mind-blowing twist that totally recontextualizes the entire story. We've been focused on Jack as the villain, but what if the real threat is Emma's own mind? What if she's creating this stalker scenario as a way to cope with her own, anxieties and insecurities?
It's brilliant and unsettling. It speaks to the complexities of human psychology and our capacity for self-deception. Benke leaves us with this question that lingers, Can we ever truly trust our own perceptions, or are we all susceptible to creating our own internal monsters?
Okay, let's move from the suspense of twisted love to a concept that explores that darker side of artistic passion, fade in. We meet Alice. She's this talented artist who experiences, an artistic awakening. But it's more like a possession, a descent into a world where creativity and madness intertwine.
Benke uses really vivid imagery to convey Alice's transformation. Her features harden, her eyes become haunted, her movements, they take on this predatory quality. It's as if something dark has taken root inside her, feeding off her talent, twisting it into something grotesque.
Her art becomes a reflection of her inner turmoil.
Right.
She paints devoured hearts, sculptures staring into voids. It's beautiful, but it's also disturbing. It's a testament to her talent, but also a warning sign of her unraveling psyche.
There's this recurring motif of shadows, and they seem to have a life of their own. They're twisting, writhing, beckoning her deeper into the darkness. It's like Benke is suggesting that the creative process can be dangerous, a journey into the unknown, one that can lead to self-destruction.
There's this scene, she's in her studio, and the wind is howling through the cracks in the boarded-up windows. It's like the darkness is trying to get in, and she's both terrified and drawn to it.
That's a powerful metaphor for the conflicting forces within her, right? This desire for creative expression, but also this fear of losing control, of being consumed by those very forces that inspire her.
And then she's in an abandoned cabin, and she encounters this figure. It's like a manifestation of her art, a grotesque, twisted reflection of herself. It's unclear if it's real or a hallucination, but it represents this dark side of her creativity, the part of her that's willing to sacrifice everything for her art.
Yeah, it's this moment of choice for Alice. She asks the figure, is this what I truly want? But it feels like she already knows the answer. It's a point of no return, and from that point on, her art becomes this conduit, a way for the darkness to bleed into reality.
So her paintings start moving. Shadows stretch unnaturally. And it's clear she's losing control, becoming one with the horror she's created. Benke uses these sensory details. You can feel the coldness of the cabin, hear that howling winds, and see these grotesque forms taking shape in the shadows.
It's terrifying, but it's also strangely beautiful. This descent into madness, this reminder that the line between genius and insanity is often thin, very easily crossed.
And the ending is, it's both breathtaking and devastating. Alice is gone, her true self consumed by that darkness. And the world around her is this nightmarish reflection of her art. It's like this cautionary tale about the power of art, the way it can both elevate and destroy, and the importance of recognizing the darkness within ourselves before it consumes us entirely.
A powerful statement about the sacrifices we make for our art, the risks we take when we venture into those, unknown depths of our own creativity.
Okay, after all that darkness and psychological torment, we need a little comedic relief. And thankfully, Benke delivers with Two's Company. It's a concept that's much lighter in tone, but it still explores those anxieties and insecurities that lurk beneath the surface, even in those who seem the most carefree.
So we meet Jack and Mike, two best friends who decide to, start a funny blog, drawing inspiration from their own hilarious misadventures. It's a celebration of friendship, the way shared experiences, even those embarrassing ones, can bond us together.
Their banter is, spot on. It perfectly captures the dynamic of a close friendship. They're constantly ribbing each other, whether it's about their taste in movies, their disastrous attempts at cooking, or their encounters with quirky neighbors.
Benke captures the authenticity of their relationship, the easy camaraderie, the inside jokes, the way they can tease each other mercilessly but always have each other's backs.
So their blog takes off. It becomes this viral sensation. They launch a podcast, a YouTube channel. They even get invited to be on a national talk show.
Okay.
It's a whirlwind of success, all fueled by their friendship and their ability to find humor in everyday life.
It's like this heartwarming story about following your passion, embracing your quirks, and finding success in the most unexpected places. But even with all the laughs, Benke weaves in these deeper themes. There's this underlying sense of insecurity, particularly with Mike, who's more introverted, prone to overthinking, self-doubt.
It adds a layer of realism to the story, reminding us that even the most successful people, they can still struggle with their own inner demons.
And it highlights the importance of friendship as a support system, a way to navigate the challenges of life and find strength in shared laughter and vulnerability.
And as their success grows, Jack and Mike realize that their comedy is more than just entertainment. It's a way to connect with people, to make them feel less alone, to remind them that it's okay to laugh at life's mishaps.
It's a beautiful message about the power of laughter, to heal, to inspire, and to bring people together.
So we've delved into quite a range of Benke's film concepts, from the depths of psychological horror to the heartwarming highs of comedic friendship. But there's so much more to explore.
There is. Stay tuned as we continue this deep dive into the fascinating and often unsettling world of Brad Ace Benko.
Okay, let's jump back into that swirling vortex of ideas. from Brad A. Spenka. We were just talking about how some of his concepts, like twisted love, play with the idea of an unreliable narrator. Well, in part 2 of the Twisted Trilogy, he takes that to a whole other level.
It's like he's built this hall of mirrors, you know? And each step you take, the reflections just become more and more distorted, more unsettling. The line between what's real and what's delusion, it's practically gone.
Yeah, remember we talked about Charlie, the comedian, being haunted by that heckler? Well, his paranoia, it goes into overdrive in this part.
Yeah.
He's convinced that someone is manipulating him, like watching his every move. He even starts seeing Jack everywhere, even in the asylum.
What's so fascinating here is how Benga uses Charlie's descent into madness to explore the nature of performance itself. Charlie's whole identity, it's built on making people laugh. But now, that laughter, it feels sinister, almost threatening, like his act has turned against him. It's a source of terror now, not amusement.
Right, and Emma, she's still getting those creepy texts, but now she's starting to suspect that Jack might be behind them. But Jack, he's such a master manipulator, so good at playing the victim, twisting things around. She starts to doubt her own instincts.
Classic gaslighting, right? And Benka portrays it with this chilling accuracy. Emma's whole world is shrinking. Her sense of self is just eroding as Jack tightens his grip on her reality.
One thing that really struck me was how Benke gives us these little glimpses of Jack's true nature, but through these seemingly innocent details. Like there's a scene where he's talking to his mother on the phone and he says, "Dad always said, either you control or you're controlled." It's a small moment, but it's so revealing.
Yeah, that line, it's a key to understanding Jack. He's driven by this deep insecurity, this fear of vulnerability, and he compensates for that by controlling others, by manipulating every situation to fit his own, twisted narrative.
And the way he talks about Emma, it's possessive, almost obsessive. It's like he's not letting her go without a fight.
It becomes this psychological thriller, this desperate struggle. Emma's trying to break free, and Jack's in this relentless pursuit of control. And Benka doesn't shy away from the darker aspects of it, the potential for violence, both emotional and physical.
And that ending. It's even more mind-bending than the first part. One version, Emma's in a cafe, seemingly free from Jack, but then she gets that chilling text. "I'm always watching."
It's gut-wrenching,
Yeah.
It suggests that Jack's control might extend way beyond their physical proximity. He's invaded her mind, her sense of safety, and that's something she may never fully escape.
But then there's the alternate ending. We find out that Emma has been sending the texts to herself this whole time.
It's like, ooh, woo! Benki pulls the rug out from under us, makes us reevaluate everything. Is Emma actually a victim of Jack, or is she the architect of her own psychological prison? Benki doesn't give us an easy answer, which makes it all the more disturbing and thought-provoking.
Okay, after that wild ride, let's take a break from the psychological intensity and revisit Two's company. Things are a bit lighter there. Jack and Mike are back for part 2 of their journey, and their friendship is stronger than ever. They're navigating the ups and downs of internet fame.
It's a nice change of pace from some of those darker concepts. But even here, Benki includes an undercurrent of self-reflection, a subtle exploration of those anxieties and insecurities that can come with success.
They're riding that wave of viral success, launching a podcast, starting a YouTube channel, even getting invited to be on a national talk show. But they never lose sight of what's important: their friendship, their shared love of making people laugh.
It's a good reminder that even when you're facing fame and fortune, true happiness comes from genuine connection. The people who know you best, who support you unconditionally.
And there's still those same goofy, relatable guys, always finding the humor in the most ordinary situations. There's this scene where they're trying to film a cooking video, and it's a total disaster. Burning pancakes, smoke alarm going off, covered in flour. Classic slapstick.
That authenticity is what makes them so endearing, They're not afraid to show their flaws, to laugh at themselves. And that really resonates with people, especially in a world where everything online is so polished and perfect.
But it's not all sunshine and rainbows, right? Def does touch on that darker side of success, the pressure, the anxiety that can come with being in the public eye. Mike, he's always been the one to overthink things, the more anxious one. His insecurities start to get to him as their fame grows.
There's that scene where he's having a full-on panic attack backstage before their talk show appearance. He's overwhelmed by the pressure to perform, to live up to everyone's expectations. It's a really vulnerable moment, one that humanizes their success, reminds us that even those who seem to have it all can struggle with self-doubt and fear.
And Jack, being the awesome friend that he is, steps up. He reminds Mike why they started this in the first place: to have fun, make people laugh, and do it together.
It's a beautiful example of the power of friendship, how it can provide support and encouragement when you need it most. And it reinforces the idea that true success isn't just about individual achievement, it's about shared experiences, lifting each other up and celebrating each other's wins.
As their journey continues, they start to realize that their work, it's more than just making people laugh. It's about connecting with them, making them feel less alone, and reminding them that it's okay to embrace your quirks, laugh at life's absurdities.
They start getting messages from fans telling them how much their videos have helped them, how their laughter has brought joy and hope into their lives. It's a big realization for Jack and Mike, and it really highlights Benki's belief in the power of humor, its ability to heal, connect, and inspire.
It's amazing, how Benki can weave these profound themes into what seems like, on the surface, a pretty lighthearted comedy. He reminds us that laughter can be such a powerful coping mechanism, a way to find the light even in the darkest times.
It really shows his range as a storyteller, his ability to move between genres, exploring those complexities of being human through different lenses.
Okay, we've explored a lot of emotional territory, delved into the depths of psychological manipulation, witnessed that heartwarming power of friendship, and even pondered the philosophical implications of self-deception. But we're not done yet. There's still more to uncover in that fascinating labyrinth of Benka's mind.
Stay tuned. We're going deeper, exploring concepts that'll challenge your perceptions, test your boundaries, and leave you thinking about the darker corners of what it means to be human.
All right, welcome back to our deep dive into the work of Brad Ace Benka. We've been through a lot, haven't we? From the chilling horror of the Asylum of Twisted Mirrors to the heartwarming camaraderie in Two's company. It's been a wild ride.
It has been a fascinating journey, but we're not quite done yet. There's one more layer to unravel in the Twisted trilogy. Remember how we saw things from Emma and Charlie's perspectives? Well, now we get to step into the mind of the manipulator himself, Jack.
I gotta admit, I'm a little apprehensive about getting inside Jack's head. He's such a complex character, so manipulative, so unsettling.
I understand the apprehension, but this is where Benka really shines, He doesn't shy away from exploring that darker side of human nature. And with Jack, we're not just seeing a villain, we're seeing a fully realized human being, flawed, damaged, capable of both charm and cruelty.
So what does Benka reveal about Jack in this last part of the trilogy?
We get these glimpses into his past, his childhood, his relationship with his parents. There are hints of a troubled upbringing, a sense that he learned to manipulate and control others as a coping mechanism, like a way to protect himself from, vulnerability and pain.
It's like Benki's giving us the villain's origin story, but it's not a simple case of good versus evil. There's this complexity to Jack, a tragic element that makes him even more disturbing.
Exactly. We see his intelligence, his charisma, but we also see those deep-seated insecurities, his need for validation, his fear of rejection, and those vulnerabilities, they fuel his manipulative behavior. It's like he's projecting his own inner demons onto Emma and Charlie, trying to control them as a way to control the chaos in his own life.
There's that scene where he's practicing lines for a play, and he's playing the role of Iago from Othello, the ultimate manipulator.
Right.
And it's chilling because it shows how comfortable he is with deception, how easily he just slips into the role of the villain.
It foreshadows Jack's true nature. He's not just pretending to be a manipulator, it's a part of him. It's this defense mechanism that has become his defining characteristic.
And the way Benki writes his dialogue is so subtle, so believable. You can almost see the charm working, the way he twists words, manipulates emotions to get what he wants.
Benka really has a knack for capturing those nuances of human interaction, the subtle ways that power dynamics play out in relationships. And with Jack, we see how manipulation can be insidious, how it can creep into these seemingly innocent interactions and erode trust and warp perceptions.
So what about the ending? Does Benka offer any kind of redemption for Jack?
No, not really. The ending is deliberately ambiguous, leaving us to grapple with the complexities of his character. There are hints of remorse, like these fleeting moments of vulnerability, but they're quickly overshadowed by his manipulative tendencies.
So it's like he's capable of empathy, of understanding the pain he's causing, but he chooses not to let those feelings, change his actions.
Right. It's chilling, but it's spade out of that reality of narcissism. It's not that these individuals are incapable of empathy. It's that they prioritize their own needs and desires above all else, even if it means hurting those around them.
And that's what makes this final part of the Twisted trilogy so unsettling. We're left with this unease, the understanding that some people are beyond redemption, that their patterns of manipulation are so ingrained they may never truly change.
It's a dark but important exploration of human nature. It challenges us to confront the fact that evil doesn't always present itself in some monstrous form. It can be charming, manipulative, even seductive, hiding in plain sight.
Okay, before we go too far down that dark path, let's check back in with Jack and Mike in part 3 of Two's Company. It's heartwarming to see their success continue, but what really stands out here is their decision to use their platform for something bigger than themselves.
They've got the fame, the recognition, the financial success, but they're not content with just making people laugh. They want to make a difference in the world, spread some positivity, inspire others.
Yeah, it's a nice evolution for their characters. They're still those goofy, relatable guys, but now there's this sense of purpose, this desire to use their comedic talent for something more meaningful.
So what do? They decide to create a comedy program for kids. It's a fantastic concept, and it speaks to Benke's versatility as a storyteller. He can create these dark, disturbing worlds, but he also understands the importance of laughter, of lightheartedness, of using humor to connect with people on a deeper level.
They put their hearts and souls into this project, developing characters that are hilarious but also educational, teaching valuable life lessons through laughter and silliness.
It shows their creativity and their genuine desire to make a positive impact. They're not just entertaining kids, they're helping them learn and grow, fostering kindness, empathy, and a sense of wonder.
And the show is a huge success. Kids love it, parents love it. It's clear that Jack and Mike have found a new purpose, a way to use their talents to, brighten the world one laugh at a time.
It's a truly heartwarming ending. Reinforces the idea that even the silliest endeavors can have a really profound impact.
Well, there you have it. We've delved into the mind of Brad Ace Benka. We explored his dark and twisted visions, his unsettling explorations of the human psyche, and his heartwarming belief in the power of laughter and friendship.
It's been a fascinating and, I think, unforgettable journey. Hopefully you've gained a deeper appreciation for Benka's unique brand of storytelling.
Absolutely. So if you had to sum up Benka's work in just a few words, what would you say?
I'd say he's a master of psychological suspense, a weaver of dark and twisted tales that explore the depths of human experience, the shadows that lurk within us all.
And what's one thing you'd want our listeners to take away from this deep dive?
I'd want them to remember that Benka's work, it's not just about entertainment. It's a challenge, a provocation, an invitation to confront those uncomfortable truths about ourselves and the world we live in.
Well said. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the mind of Brad Ace Benka, remember to keep your mirrors clean, your friendship strong, and your sense of humor intact. And always, always be mindful of the shadows. You never know what might be lurking within them. Thanks for joining us.